966.
My one big thing this week, if you're ready to move on.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. My
Please.
one big thing this week.
Spare me.
We talk about this somewhat regularly on the 966. Lucid Motors just announced its second quarter financial results. This was earlier this week on an earnings call, provided some updates and details on its plans for the road ahead. CEO Peter Rawlinson led the call with figures from the second quarter of 2023. Rawlinson also is CTO of the company and, as many know, was chief engineer of the Tesla Model S. And he left Tesla to start Lucid. So let's just list out everything we learned on this call. We'll start with the financial results first and then discuss the latest news and plans announced by the CEO. First, on numbers, the company reported second quarter earnings and revenue below market expectations. In the second quarter, Lucid recorded revenue of $150.9 million. The company ended second quarter with total liquidity of $6.25 billion, which is a lot of money, and is expected to be sufficient liquidity to get through the start of production of the Gravity SUV, which we must interject now, looks so cool. And I'm going to come right back to that in a second, into 2025. So they have enough money, is the point. Cash stood at $2.78 billion at the end of June, compared with $900 million 3 months prior. Of course, that's due to the fact that in May, Lucid announced its latest capital raise of $3 billion with a public offering of common stock, and a corresponding investment by the PIF. It was actually an affiliate of the PIF. Third IR company, I believe, is the name. Anyway, it was the PIF. And that transaction closed in June. The company said it will have a CAPEX of approximately $1.1 to $1.3 billion in 2023. So they're building. We also got an update on the PIF ownership of Lucid, which was 60.2% ownership. And Lucid, in a sort of briefing booklet that they put out, which is available on their website, that was really well produced, actually, really good graphics, a lot of imagery in there. Hopefully we can include some of it on this segment, because there's some new looks at the Galaxy. You don't get like the full look of the car, but you kind of see it from behind. So anyway, it's pretty cool. But yeah, we now know that 60.2% of the company is owned by the PIF, and the PIF has invested $5.4 billion into the company since 2018. And that's, the company says that shows a track record of support. Indeed, it does. That's a lot of commitment. The company says it will make more than 10,000 vehicles this year. For reference, that does seem a little low. I did a little poking around, looking at EV startups, EV first and only startups. Fisker will make between 20 to 23,000 vehicles. Rivian is going to make about 50,000. Polestar says it will make about 60 to 70,000 EVs. So it's behind those EV only startups, not that far behind. It's not like it's getting blown away. Everyone is behind Tesla by a lot, which is not news. Tesla said it would make around 2.1 million vehicles this year. Okay, so that's sort of the financial picture and a little bit about what they're doing. On to the news and announcements here. And again, I hope to include some of this in the video production, but the company released some imagery, and the Galaxy you can now see from behind. You get to see Rawlinson like kind of behind the vehicle, but they're purposefully not showing the whole thing. They'll be doing some road testing phases this year, and then they said by 2024 the Lucid Gravity. I've been saying Gravity. I've been saying Galaxy. I think it's Gravity is the SUV.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So apologies.
No
but the Gravity will be available next year. At the end of next year, they said they'll start selling them. So it's going to be a little while until we get to see that on the road. The Lucid Air Pure will be available in higher volumes in the second half of this year. And the Lucid Air Sapphire will begin production anytime. They said summer 2023. We're in August now, so we're running a little low on time there. But on Saudi Arabia, the company is moving forward with work on a plant in the kingdom. It's first outside its main plant in the United States. Lucid's core EV tech is created in-house and manufactured at Lucid's facility in Arizona, where the company produces its own electric motors, transmission systems, power, electronic inverters, the revolutionary Wonderbox, racing-derived battery packs. It's sort of doing it all at its company in Arizona. So what they're going to be doing in Saudi Arabia is building a facility that will then assemble Lucid vehicles that are made in parts in Arizona. They'll be shipped over to Saudi Arabia. And at its peak, Lucid expects to manufacture up to 155,000 vehicles per year at that facility in Saudi Arabia. That'll be located at the King Abdullah Economic City, sort of near Jeddah. So they're going to start doing this, Richard, at the end of this month, September 2023, really beginning of next month, anytime next month is what they said. But they're going to ship elements of the car to Saudi Arabia. They will start assembling them in Saudi Arabia. And I just thought that this was really interesting because we've been sort of on top of this, in part because we think the cars are cool, and because it's a really interesting story with Saudi Arabia backing an EV automaker and wanting them to be made in Saudi Arabia as the world's largest oil producer. So it's sort of interesting. CEO Peter Rawlinson said, "We are not limited by our ability to manufacture. Most of the supply chain has now come throughout COVID area is figured out. We are limited by our ability to sell the cars right now. And that's my key focus," he said. So really what we're looking at now is they've got a ton of money. They're making cars. They're not making enough cars right now to really see any sort of profitability, but also to compete in any way with Tesla. And I don't think that's realistic. The cars are more expensive. They did drop the price, I think, of the Lucid Air by a little bit to make it a little bit more affordable.
82,000.
82,000, which is still
nowhere near my budget.
No, that's still pretty high. That is not anywhere close to Tesla's model and some other EV producers models. But this is really the point that I want to make with that, Richard, is that if the car is actually that much nicer, and from what you can see, it looks really, really nice. You drove one, and is it Galaxy? Do I keep messing this up? It's Galaxy, right? Gravity. It's the Gravity.
For the SUV. I haven't driven a Gravity, but I drove a Lucid Air.
If these cars are actually way nicer and they're just the luxury version of Tesla, that could be a very, very good separator for the company. They have cash. I don't think Polestar or Rivian have the same sort of state investment fund backing and sort of guarantor that they have. Lucid can be a loss leader for a long time, potentially outlasting some of its peers. So if they're in the market for a while, what is the deciding factor when you're buying a car? Is it quality of car? Is it price? If Lucid's cars are just that much nicer, have that much more range, are the luxury version of Tesla, I could see a place for it in the marketplace. And I can see it outlasting some of its peers that may not get there because they can't possibly sell cars fast enough. So just sort of a pretty good update from Lucid on where they are. We got the numbers and everything, and they weren't impressive, but I guess one figure that was impressive was how much cash they have on hand now with their recent raise, the backing of the Saudi government, the fact that they will be starting to assemble these cars in Saudi Arabia, which is really good news both for Saudi Arabia and for Lucid. Seems like they're in a decent position here. They just got to start getting these cars out into the marketplace. And I think that's going to be the focus here over the next year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months and how they end up doing before the end of the year. If they hit that 10,000 car figure, just an interesting time. Again, we welcome anyone from Lucid to not just come on the show, of course, but provide us with Lucids so that we may test them ourselves and drive them, because that would be awesome. There is one, as I mentioned, Richard, out here near me that I see all the time, and it looks so cool. And again, if it's if it's the Mercedes to Tesla's Toyota Camry, I can see there being a market for these eventually.
I love that. And that was really informative. And it's good to get a sort of a catch up on this. And you look at, first of all, it's nice that Lucid Air price came down, but they also came out with the Lucid Air Sapphire, the $249,000 version, which goes 0 to 60 in 1.89 seconds.
Everyone needs that.
If one of your kids wasn't buckled in, they'd be plastered up against the rear window.
That is fast.
Oh my goodness, that's insane. And it's just really curious to me. There's so many interesting things, because you look at Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia, look at this. All right, so let's take this investment. This is a big investment, and a $5.4 billion investment. It's the understatement of the year for Lucid to say. I don't know what they said. They've been strong supporters. I don't know. I mean, they're superstar supporters, and it gives Lucid, a cushion that most any sort of corporation rarely has. But you look at it from a Saudi perspective, I guess I'm really fascinated. I'll get to the question at the end, the wonder at the end. it makes sense technologically, investment, and this is cutting edge EV stuff. This is leading EV stuff. It makes sense industrially in terms of building a sector, an automotive sector. Um, it makes sense in terms of upskilling population, employment, all sorts of things. And it might make sense from a veteran's perspective. And on top of that, we think the car is beautiful. But the problem is, the thing I can't get, that sort of stumps me is Peter Rawlinson said it himself. These are no longer supply chain issues. People just aren't buying this car. And I don't know if it's the price point or what it is, because by every almost uniformly, and I have not read a negative review of this vehicle, and most of them are over the top in terms of praise. Yet, they sold 10,000 this year. That's just not a lot. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough. So I don't know how they're going to solve this problem, because something's missing in terms of either its market strategy, its positioning. I don't know, because you and I both look at this and go, "Oh my goodness," and we drool. But apparently we're in a fairly small minority.
Yeah, just a slight correction there, Richard. They haven't sold 10,000 this year. They're going to make 10,000.
Right. There you go.
That's the goal, but that's low. And so your point stands, but you're right. I mean, if the car is really awesome and in this sort of like promotional document, and we're going to put a link to it because it's publicly available information. It does have some really badass photos of the Lucid, just like really high res photographs. And then a lot of actually really good, financial information from this recent release. But page 26 of 29, it's awards and accolades. Winner 2023 World Car Awards for the best luxury car. Newsweek 2023 World's Greatest Auto Disruptors Powertrain Disruptor Award. Bloomberg Green ranked number 1 and 6 of the top 7 overall green EV ratings. US News and World Report Best Luxury Electric Car 2023. Car and Driver, Money, Auto Trader. People, not people, reviewers and auto experts love the car. How do you get people to love it? Is it just make it less expensive? There are still very wealthy people buying cars that cost at least that much. A new Toyota Land Cruiser, at least not the newest one because they're kind of changing everything about it, but a new Toyota Land Cruiser was like $90,000 in the US. That's more than a Lucid. People are willing to spend that much for a car. Right. Again, not us. But we're willing to take a free car. Absolutely. But people are willing to do that. So how do you get them to do it? How do you get people to drive it and feel it and see it and want it? Maybe it just takes time. And that's something they can afford because they have PIF backing.
100%. And by the way, PAF is not putting all its eggs in the Lucid basket. I mean, they have a $5.6 billion with Human Horizons, which is a Chinese electric vehicle. They've got a huge commitment with Sear.
Yeah. A
number of other EV investments, all trying to build this automotive ecosystem, particularly electric vehicle ecosystem. And but both those guys, the Human Horizons and Sear are more sort of mainstream, affordable. The Lucid's definitely a luxury play. And look, we know about the Saudis love a luxury play. A lot of their tourism, especially in new places, is luxury. That's what they lead with, luxury.
Yeah.
And they get some trendsetters and influencers, and then they move on down the spectrum in terms of affordability. So but they're covering the whole range of it. But yeah, this is fascinating to me. I'm not saying my tastes go with everybody, but both of us think it's a gorgeous car. Both of us see that it's a well-made car, but it's got to sell better.
Yeah. I have a buddy that's in the EV space, and I was talking with him about this last night, and he just said they have to follow the exact playbook as Tesla if they want to be anywhere close. Expensive car, slightly less expensive car, and then a really affordable car for the masses. And then to have to scale production of that, which is insanely hard, and build like 10 factories all over the world. So, I mean, there's one factory now in Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And the fact that the playbook exists and the market is different, there is demand for these EVs now, and increasingly will be the case that there will be demand, seems possible. And again, like if they're able to be the loss leader for a while and get everything figured out, you could see it working out. It would be so cool if there was the Lucid Air Lite in 2026 that is more in our price range, Richard. That would be cool. But
I think we got to wait till the Lucid Smog comes out. We'll be able to afford that. I think that'll be a pedaling EV. It'll be, like we charge it with our manpower.
It's got the little solar panel on top and it goes like 15 miles an hour.
And I'll put a little 966 sticker on it.
For the Lucid Smog. It actually generates more pollution. That's funny.